if she wasn't there. So, my challenge to us as coaches is, can we paint that picture more often than just having an attacker by themselves, taking their grand old time to get to goal, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, and I would even zoom out even one more step, because I think it's a great question because I think this frame here shows Campbell, at least in my opinion, that Campbell expects Sonnet to pinch as opposed to swing under, and that's why she gets bulldozed on the play. So I can see where Campbell might be thinking, oh, hey, if we collectively pinch here, like, we'll have this. But there's a lot of moments you're not going to be able to train for. Like, you're absolutely right of, hey, can we look at this? Can we look at that? But what is the process of thinking, okay, this is a moment that we haven't been able to train for. We've given up a quick throw in. It's in on goal. It's kind of an awkward run away from goal, but there's still a defender in. Like, it's very difficult to get all those pieces in training. Very unlikely. But is the process, hey, I'm just going to go throw my body, or is a process, hey, I know these are things that I'm good at. These are things I'm not so good at. I'm going to lean to my strengths and kind of hide my weaknesses. It's a lot of questions, but I think, again, like, the training environment is like the big question for me. I mean, how many times do you even work on breakaways where the ball's going away from goal?
Right, but I think the key is that I think that's the miscue here, is reading the situation. I don't think the understanding of the fact of where the runner's coming from, where the ball is going, I think that was all miscued here. Like, yes. And even let's take Sonnet out of it. Even if this pass comes in, that first touch is away from you. You still don't go unless she's going and she's making a play on the ball, like Jill said. You would hold yourself. Like, what are you going to do? You're taking a touch away from me. Now, let's say there's no defenders, because that's how a lot of practice happens. And then she's going to turn and this and that and the other and so on and so forth and take 10 touches. And it's not, but still in the moment, it's still not the right play.
But to your point, Bill, goalkeepers, I think these days, in my opinion, or let me ask you guys this. How would you describe the best goalkeepers in the world with 1 to 3 adjectives? You get 3 words to describe the best goalkeepers in the world. What would you say?
Oh, gosh.
Off the top of my head, I think the first 2 that come up, there is a baseline of athleticism, but there's also, I'm trying to think the right word for it, but some sort of like depth of understanding. I mean, IQ is maybe the easiest phrase, but
that's what
some sort of practical knowledge of, like, hey, I can handle situations I haven't trained for. Those are probably the first 2 words that come up for me.
Right.
Yeah,
like,
mine's the same.
Yeah.
It'd be game understanding, like tactical knowledge. Yes, athleticism, those things are great, but it really is key of reading the game for me.
Yeah. For me, I would just say, I think the best goalkeepers in the world are well-rounded, adaptable problem solvers, right? And so, like, no technique is in there, right? Like, just adaptable problem solvers.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, and you're right, Bill, we're not going to paint this exact picture in training, but what we could paint is a bunch of different scenarios with principle guided questions. So the principles are there. So, no matter what situation pops up, the principle, if I can impact the ball, I can go.
Right.
If I can't, then I step back and I react. The principles are there. And so then you can feel comfortable, and there's freedom, and there's this space that you can be adaptable, and you can solve the problem based on your skill set, based on the principles of play, right? So yes, to your point, we're not going to see this exact scenario, but also to Saskia's point is like, yeah, we could see an attacker in our training session make a run from a central position to a less threatening area, take their touch away from pressure, and we could maybe impact the ball. We could go, but if we can't, we know that it's not threatening, so we would just step back and react, right? So it allows, if our training environment allows goalkeepers to be more adaptable in these situations, and to make the choices consistently right more times than not.
Yeah.
I like to think that Jill has just binders of, like, goalkeeping. Like flipping through, like, right? You rattled that off so quickly. I was like, man, she's
the best. Are you kidding me?
Wonderful.
I sit here and just take notes. like afterwards, send me the recording right away.
Well, thinking of, how did you principles of play? What was the phrase you used? Excuse me, I'm already blanked off of it. What did you say, Jill? The principles.
If you can impact the ball, then you can then go. If you can't, then you would stay back and react, or be ready to make another decision.
There was a phrase. I'm sorry. What was the phrase you used? So there was
The three things.
Oh, my 3 things about well-rounded, adaptable, effective problem solvers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you
Okay,
go.
so here's like I think a good example of.
I need a T-shirt.
Yeah. We need it. So the U.S. levels the score. We're in the second half here, and I think there's a lot of little details that go a long ways off this play. Obviously, there's some positive here. I think that the footwork's probably the big one for me. She doesn't just instantly move or sell out her body. It's a lot of good, quick footwork here. But Jill, what are some like the finer details that you feel like might have made Campbell's life a little easier off this play?
Yeah, I mean, initially, I love her positioning, the depth that she retains, just because it gives her less area to protect over her head, and also more time if there is a slight deflection, whether it comes off the wall or she's unsighted and can't really see it. So she gives herself a bit more time to be able to react. Her movement toward the ball, I think, is fantastic. The way she gets her shoulder over knee, she leans in there, she keeps her feet underneath of her. I just think, though, that you have to expect that your box is going to be crowded. And so the further away you can get your rebound, the better. And I think that when she decides to go with 2 hands, there isn't a ton of pace on the ball. It almost kills the pace of the ball. And so she isn't able to get a rebound far enough away from goal. Initially, it's a great attempt. But if she splits to 1, I think she can push that rebound further away.
Mm-hmm. And to your point, and it makes me think of the goal against Anna Morehouse in the Challenge Cup, right? Mm-hmm. She's not in good position, right? She is off her line a little bit too much, right? And so this ball's put in the same spot, and she can't get there. And I think it's because she's a little bit too far forward. I don't think her positioning was good. And she gets there, but she doesn't really get there. And I think she had more depth in her positioning, she would have been able to get there possibly for it. I don't know if Jane Campbell is trying to parry this ball. And I think that's my issue here. And I think I said that I think she's trying to hold this ball. And this is, everybody knows Mike makes fun of me. Everybody makes fun of me. I'm like, catch the ball. Goalkeepers catch the ball, no rebounds. This is a case where this has to be parried. This has to be cleared. Yes, 1 hand. Whether you're going 2 hands, you got to go shoot from your chest and go at force. And the reason I don't think she's trying, because her hands are already there when the ball hits, and I think she's trying to catch it. And I think that is a mistake here.
But
because
is that kind of the like allurement of Campbell, of how I feel like her game is so built on, hey, I'm going to go show you like why I'm here.
Well, we get into the question of what are you trying to prove something here? Like, are you trying to say, hey, I'm going to stick this ball. I'm going to go to the upper 90. I'm going to stick this ball. I'm going to catch it. I just felt when I saw this, and I've seen it over and over again, I said, and I'd love to ask her, were you trying to hold on to the ball? Surely. No fault of your own. And I'd say, not like in practice, please make that attempt, extend your range, see what you can hold on to and can't hold on to. But like you said, Jill, with your box crowded and everything like that, if you don't hang on to this ball, you're going to have a problem. And so this ball, in my opinion, there is no question of it, has to be cleared out.
Mm. Yeah. I think this goes back to our training design again. I know. I honestly, you guys, I always want to bear the brunt of problems when we see goalkeepers, and it comes back to us, right? Like, our job is to help them succeed. So I always think, like, what can we do to set them up for more success, right? So if we're never training with pressure that's coming on to you, and we're told to catch everything, like a lot of goalkeepers are these days now, then you're taking away our decision to make an effective solution. And the effective solution here would be to put this rebound out as far away from goal as possible.
Yeah, and it's a good question. You wonder, like, let's say in practice, in training camp, was she showing up against free kicks, and was she holding on to this shot?
No, not even that. Not even in that. Like, I'm talking about from grassroots when we start with young goalkeepers, like I'm talking about, I asked someone the other day, like, they were like, well, what about catching for 8-year-olds? I said, catching for 8-year-olds? Their hands are shrimp forks. They can't catch anything anyway.
Shrimp forks. It's that SNL thing.
Yes, exactly.
But you're right, exactly, and the ball's too big for them and everything. So teach them
Yes.
good decision making and
Teach them game understanding.
game
Yes,
understanding, and that
yes.
is goes back to your argument about what coaches say is that they goalkeepers don't have game understanding. Well, what environment are you putting them in? When I was at UCLA, the one thing, hats off to Amanda and Sam and them, is everything we did was like, there was technical training, but then everything had like this game environment to it. And when we were doing attacking scenarios or anything, there was always defense with us. There was always a certain, it was never that.
Welcome to the Keeper Institute podcast. My name is Tori Corsaro. I'm a strength and conditioning and goalkeeper coach here at the Keeper Institute and your host for today's show. The Keeper Institute is a unique goalkeeper training facility in New Jersey aimed at developing better goalkeepers and better people. On this podcast, we will be discussing all things goalkeeping, character development, and more. Welcome back to another episode of the Keeper Institute podcast. I love it.
Mine was electronic and it counts still.
Yeah, it's about time we remember to use that thing.
I know. I'm super pumped that we now have that if we need it.
Yeah.
Like if my voice is gone or something, then
Think camp season. I mean,
right.
I have no voice in camp season, so
right.
this is good news for us. You guys, welcome. We're doing another one, and as you could probably imagine, we're going to tell you we're excited because anytime we get to talk goalkeeping, and anytime we get to talk goalkeeping together, we are double excited. Today we got a good one for you. We're going to talk about some of the biggest quote-unquote problems with the modern day GK. So, Jill, give us a little insight. What are you thinking? What are you pumped to talk about?
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about this one because I feel like as goalkeeper coaches, we're always the ones that are at the end of the bench that when the goalkeeper makes a mistake, the head coach looks down at us like, what happened? Like, what's going on? And we're always the ones that hear a lot of whining and gripes and the whinging, and it's typically from head coaches. And typically head coaches are like, this is what's wrong with the goalkeepers, blah, blah, blah. And so we've taken those. We hear you. And we've taken that. We've compiled a list of the top 3 biggest whinges, the top 3 biggest moans. And we are going to release what those top 3 things are. However, I really want this to be heard that if you are a goalkeeper listening to this, this is not your fault. And that these 3 things, I would agree that these 3 things are areas we need to improve on. However, I just want to remind these goalkeepers that it's not your fault, that it's actually us as coaches. So this is a good podcast, not only for players, but for coaches. It is our job as coaches to prepare you. And if we consistently, Tori, if you and I for years have consistently heard these things are problems, then it is our job to set the goalkeepers up for success so that those 3 things aren't continually being a problem, right? Like it's okay to have shortcomings. It's okay to have weaknesses and areas of improvement. But we don't want those areas of improvement to be the same year over year over year, right? It's okay. Like, all right, well, we're getting better in possession. We're getting better at solving pressure. Okay, well, now we need to be better, at our preventative positioning. And it's our job as coaches to bring some awareness and attention so that players can find new solutions to problems that are continually becoming more and more difficult. But yeah, this podcast, I think, is going to be more for coaches and some players, maybe bringing some awareness and asking some questions of like, how do you solve some of these problems and how can you find some different solutions?
Right. Yeah. Again, to reiterate, it's not your fault. Like if you want someone to be better at something, then you have to make sure that it's accessible and it's being taught to them. I feel very similar about like game models, right? Like it's like, this is the way we play. And I'm like, well, do the players know that that's the way we play? Mm-hmm. Or have you included your goalkeeper in that so that they know that they're not just a passing station, you want them to do X, Y, Z? So I think this one could drive home some good points, but also give a little bit of like light shed on things that are going to be important for everyone to consider: players, coaches, DOCs.
Yeah, let's get into it. I mean, these top 3 things, we're going to go through each one. And then as goalkeeper coaches, what is the solution? Like, I'm a big person of like, I don't just want to hear people bitch and complain about something. I want a solution. So don't come to me with 100 problems without one solution. So I feel like that's what people do, is they come to us with all the problems of like, these are the problems with the current modern day American goalkeepers. Okay, well, what is the solution? Let's reflect back on us and figure out what the solution is. Like, that's something I love about goalkeeper coaching, is that it's a problem. There's a puzzle, and let's be creative to find different solutions to make these things happen, to change behavior, to help goalkeepers adapt to certain situations. Like, that's the fun part. It's not the complaining. Like, we can all see that every single goalkeeper on this planet all needs support, and they all need improvement in certain areas, some more than others. But like, let's figure out this problem together and let's collaborate. First one, biggest one, probably most important one that head coaches or goalkeeper coaches complain about is wrong with the American day current goalkeeper is game understanding. Okay. Understanding tactics, understanding game situations comparative to how much time is left on the clock. Are we winning? Are we losing? And all the decisions that go into what's our strategy? What's the opponent doing? How much time do we have? What's our, what's success look like for us in this game today here might be different if it's at the end of your season or in the beginning of the season, or your team needs points in the table, or if your team is just cruising where they are and you just need to continue the momentum. Players need more understanding of tactics. I think we can all agree upon that. And I think the problem is that our sessions reflect something completely different than what the goalkeepers are going to see in game-like environments. So typically, the more traditional goalkeeper training session and practice looks more similar to American Gladiators than it does to game-like environments. What do I mean by that? We were talking this week in our TKI coaches meetup, and I think a good analogy is if you think about the game like a cake, right? You think about the game. My favorite, I like funfetti cake, like this gluten-free one that Maria made for my 30-something birthday. It was like my favorite cake ever. Think about that as the game, as the cake is as big as the game, right? In practice, I'm not going to eat the whole cake. I want a slice of the cake. I want part of the cake. I want a piece of the cake. Well, what happens is in traditional goalkeeper coaching environments is that instead of eating a slice of cake, we eat a raw egg, right? And the raw egg that we put into a cake only tastes delicious when it's in the context of all the other ingredients together. And so what make this analogy into goalkeeper training, we go over cones and we catch, and we absorb pace and we catch volleys, which is never something that we're going to be doing in a game, right? That's not serving our needs. We move over cones, we pass to this predetermined outlet, and then we move to this position and we catch. That isn't reflective of the information that I would be getting within the context of a game-like environment. Now, if you take the game as like the highest level of what we're going to be doing in terms of representative learning, let's say it's a 10, we don't want our training designs to always look like a 10. We don't, because there's too much variability. There's too many things that could happen. There's too much information. We want to think about it more in like a scale of like, I don't know, 5 to 7, 4 to 7, something along those lines. That's representative of what they're going to see, but not necessarily the whole thing. We want a slice of the cake. We want information there within our training design without completely stripping it away. So we want to simplify the task. We don't want to decompose the task down to something that doesn't look like the game, that looks like American Gladiators more than it does soccer game. So as coaches, if we want to help players with their game understanding, we need to create game-like environments for them to learn in. Not necessarily as variable as the game. We need to simplify the tasks with information that's still there, because that's how goalkeepers are going to learn. Should I have gone out in that 1v1? Well, maybe not, because there was a recovering defender. If you're doing 1v1s with no recovering defender ever, how does the goalkeeper know exactly what to do? If you're doing shot stopping with no attackers inside the penalty area, how does the goalkeeper know when to catch and when to push away? So the information needs to be there for goalkeepers to be able to attune their attention to the important information. The second thing is that our traditional goalkeeper training environments have always been so coach centered. I know all the answers. I know the proper technique. I know the proper way to solve this. And so you need to listen to me and you need to lean on me. Where that doesn't happen in a game. I don't get the luxury of calling a timeout and telling the goalkeeper what we need to do, or within a shot stopping moment, giving them the tools to be able to, or the decision to solve that problem. So within our training design, within our training, our practice, we need to have a collaborative effort together so that I'm not always just downloading the answers, which, by the way, I might not always know the answers. So it's a collaboration together between the coach and the player to be able to solve these problems. Sometimes I might say, Tor, I'm not really sure. Let's figure that out together. Or I would say, why don't you explore the width of your feet, right? Or whatever it is. But I am not the gatekeeper of all goalkeeping knowledge. And by doing that in a more traditional sense, we rob goalkeepers an opportunity to make decisions autonomously. We rob goalkeepers an ability to attune their attention to the important information, and therefore we rob their ability to understand the game on a deeper level.
Yeah, I don't really have anything. I can't really build off that because you got me on it. It's obviously, you and I are quite like-minded on that. I can't tell you the last time that I did use a cone other than to be a marker of something, whether it be the 6 or like, please start your pressure from here because kids keep creeping in. But I think the more representation we can get, the more that we're aiding to our goalkeepers being able to make game time decisions in the game, because what's not there in a game? A set of cones to jump over or to move through to then make your save.
Correct. Yeah.
Never I've seen it. Not in my world.
I'm not saying that you can't use those things. If you needed to use markers or cones or something to highlight some areas, it's not outside the realm, but in the traditional sense, moving over them, jumping over them, all those things isn't really going to be the most beneficial way to work on things. I also think we need to establish, what does success look like? Because I don't think I would want my training design to be a 10 out of 10 all the time. Like, I don't want goalkeepers to be 10 out of 10 or else they're not learning and adapting, right? I want it to be like, I don't know, depending on the day, maybe 7 out of 10 or 8 out of 10 if it's match day -1. But if they're always 10 out of 10, you're robbing them of an opportunity to manage the mistakes, right? You're robbing them an opportunity to explore different solutions. And we're wasting time, really, if you're just doing something, that you're already in 10 out of 10 at, right? So anyway, I think it's important to establish, what does success look like in these moments in training, because the answer isn't always a successful outcome. Like, maybe the exploration to find that solution is actually the success. And it might not be consistent every time, because we're not just working on the final action. We're not just working on the solution to the problem. We're working on the process of finding that solution, right? Because behind every save is 100 decisions, right? Is the person in the right position? Were they in the right shape? Were they looking at the right information? All those things. There's so much decisions that go into into a save that happen way before the save even occurs.
Yeah, I think like it kind of leads us to one of our last points. I won't touch too much on it because it's saving it for the last one. But like, if you're a 10 out of 10 and I only ever ask you to be a 10 out of 10, I'm only helping you find success after success after success, as it's like, I would say, like, historically thought of like catching cleanly or keeping it out of the net and making it look XYZ way. It leads to, like, I think, an unrealistic expectation for your goalkeeper, because the game isn't pretty and the game isn't 10 out of 10. And it's also, sometimes it is just purely like, I don't care what it looks like, find a way to keep it out of the back of the net. So I think it leads us to what point 3 will be, which is confidence, and where confidence can truly come from versus like the standard way of looking at it of like, I'm 10 out of 10 in training. And that's when I'm confident, right? So, well,
yeah, you needed that. That was
for you on it.
That was a great point, Tor.
You ready for point 2?
I'm ready.
All right. In possession, Jill. Why is this one of the biggest problems with a modern goalkeeper? What do you think is like the issue here?
I think it's a few different things. I think there's no clear principles or objective of what a goalkeeper is expected to do in possession, right? You see a lot of goalkeeper coaches and head coaches saying, whinging about, you got to play short, you got to build out. That's not always true. Like, that's not the objective. And that's not, I don't think in my mind, what coaches are saying to players is that you have to do these things. You have to play it to the center back. You have to build out short. I just think let's find the highest value pass. Maybe that is short to draw pressure onto the center backs or the goalkeepers to create a numerical advantage higher up the pitch. But I also think if there is a player 7-11 who are in a 1v1 battle and have a technical or dynamic advantage over their fullback, let's hit them, and that's totally fine too. That there's nobody that is saying you have to play short and you have to build out of the back with your center backs. I think, we want to build out of the back, but you can build out of the back and play your 7s and 11s as well. So that would be my first one, is what's the objective? Number 2 is, I think as goalkeeper coaches, we have to do a better job in training of preparing these young goalkeepers to have those tools to be able to solve pressure. Because what's happening is that we're telling them we want to build from you. We want you to be the base of our strategy in possession. And then you go into training and they're not being pressed. And so they're not being uncomfortable. They're passing to mini goals that aren't moving, and there's no secondary pressure. It is basically all technique with no decision making, which in my mind, I'm like, okay, well, I guess if you don't have the numbers, you could do something like that, but I'll at least add one person who is somewhat a defender, whether that's putting pressure on the goalkeeper, whether that's putting pressure on the options, whether that's getting in the way of some of these options, allowing the goalkeeper to try to use deception to create a space and a passing lane. I understand that sometimes it's not the most ideal situation. However, we can do better. There's something we can do.
Sure.
And I think we need to reflect what decisions is the goalkeeper having to make in games and allow them to explore it in training, allow them to make mistakes, allow them to figure out how to use mat to solve pressure, or how do I add deception and disguise to my passes, right? I think there needs to be, again, we go back to that first point of game understanding. We need to create these training environments that reflect some of the decisions and some of the information that's going to be really useful in games. If not, you get goalkeepers who pee their pants every time the ball comes back to them and they're being pressed. I'm saying this, putting my hand up, is when I played, I would pray the ball never came back to my left foot. I would pray that I wouldn't be pressed because I had no idea what to do. And I would just play on one every time. And even if the ball wasn't one touch playable, I would try. And it got me into trouble, right? So one is clarity in terms of what our objectives are. 2 is programming it into our session design with realistic information. And 3 is we need to have patience, understanding, and grace. These are young players that we're trying to prepare to succeed, at the next level than they currently are. And in order to get to the next level than they currently are, they're going to make mistakes, and you have to be patient. You cannot condemn them for making an error in possession, especially if you're asking them to do it.
Yeah, it's not going to be perfect, and you can't expect it to be, and there's going to be errors. I think it was recently on the TKI Instagram where it's a roll of errors from professional goalkeepers. That means they're at the pinnacle of where, maybe these youth goalkeepers want to be, or are just some of the best in the world, right? There's not a lot of professional athletes in this world. So that to make it, you're one of the best. And they're making errors because they're trying things. And I think sometimes that is what stops these young goalkeepers from wanting to even try to do what you're asking, because they're afraid that they're going to get hollered at. They're afraid they're going to get pulled. They're afraid of all these external things that could happen if they simply take a touch that gives it to the other team. Or, I guess worst case scenario is they get scored on off that mistake. And I think you have to supply an environment that lets them know that they're safe to do it. Mm-hmm. And it starts with giving them that freedom in training, where it really couldn't matter less if they get scored on.
Right. I think you got to figure out when and where do I want to suffer.
Yeah.
When and where do I want to suffer? Do I want to suffer at the NWSL level because you have a goalkeeper who cannot solve pressure and freaks out every time they're pressed and makes a mistake every time, gives the ball away every time? Do you want to suffer there? Or do you want to suffer in your U12 practice?
Yeah.
In your practice. Like, and of course, you know, even professional goalkeepers have to suffer through some mistakes in their training environments, but just I would much prefer for younger players, especially, to try, explore, and make mistakes in training, and then give them some latitude in games, and but also like build them up in training. It's not like we're just, you know what, be composed and solve pressure, and we're not just saying that in the game. We have built them up in their training environments, allowed them to make mistakes, reminded them, hey, I want you to explore some solutions. I'm right here with you. We're going to figure this out together. We're going to collaborate together. You are free. This, you know, these next 6 rounds, I want you to explore. Check in, check for understanding, see if they're seeing the space or not. What's their body shape look like? That's half of the problem. These goalkeepers' body shapers are so oriented to the ball, they can't see the space, right? So how can you attune their attention to that space? Ask a question, create some kind of constraint within your session design to allow that opportunity to see the space. Oh, move as touch. Okay. But yeah, I mean, I'd much prefer for that U12 training, that U16, U17, 18, whatever, U20 training, to allow them to explore, to make mistakes so that they feel more prepared when it comes to the games. And they actually are being asked to do these things and be brave.
Yeah, I hear you. And one last thing, and I could go on a soapbox here, so I'm going to try to keep myself in check. But part of the problem is exactly what you started this with, of like, we must build out, it must look this way. But one of my favorite things about soccer is that it is a free-flowing, unscripted sport. Is there things that can be scripted? 100%, yes. But there should be creativity and freedom for all players. You don't look at a 10 and say, you can only do this, right? Because you want your 10 to be a master on the ball. You want them to pick passes that are going to be dangerous in the attack. You want them to be able to help us build in our possession. And one thing that I feel is constantly happening every single time I go to recruit is that I only see goalkeepers bowl the ball out, and I only see them play short to their center back on the build out from goal kicks. And I think that directly translates to when the ball comes back to them, that short pass is all they're looking for. So much so that it's hard to even find a youth goalkeeper that has the ability to play a long ball. And I think that that's not their fault at all. I think it's a detriment to them. And it's something that's happening because of this, like, we must play this way system. But again, I'm going to jump off my soapbox. I just think it's something that we can consider when we're teaching our goalkeepers in possession, when we're teaching our back four in possession, what it can look like versus, oh, it should look like.
Yeah. Well, I actually don't even, if we go a little bit further on this in possession topic, sometimes I don't even think goalkeepers know why they're playing their center back. Like, what are the options? Why am I playing it to them? They're open and I'm going to pass the problem. That's what I think is that it's not on my foot and I'm going to pass it to someone else who's open. When we have no thought process behind, well, I'm passing it to the center back to maybe draw pressure to them. And then I'm going to change my angle of support so that I can be a better option for that center back when they get the ball to maybe play a more penetrative pass. Right. Yeah, that we'll do a whole nother podcast on that.
We will. All right, number 3. We already kind of gave you a little bit of a teaser on what number 3 was, but it's confidence. It's one of the biggest problems probably in youth sports in general, but even just like the modern goalkeeper, confidence is an issue. And why do you think that is, Jill?
Well, I think this all comes back down to session design, if I'm being honest. I think that's probably where this entire podcast is surrounded by. If we had an opportunity to change one thing, if we could change our session design to be more representative of what goalkeepers are going to see in a game, I think we can cover all 3 of these topics. I think that the problem is that when we train in a traditional goalkeeper training environment, we work on what, Tori? What is the number one thing we work on?
Shot stopping.
technique, right?
Yeah.
Is that everyone's like, oh, technical. Got to have the technique. You got to have the technique of catching. You got to have this technique of all these things. And so then what happens is that I strike a ball at you. Hopefully it's from the floor and it's moving. It's not a volley, but I hit a ball at you. And then I say, well, you need to keep your chest forward. And I give you feedback. You need to roll your shoulders here. You need to get set. You're not balanced, blah, 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 blah. And every time I hit a ball at you, I critique you if it's not perfect. And it becomes nitpicky. And every time a goalkeeper saves a shot, they're like this. Oof, what are they going to say now? Oh, I'm going to get negative feedback. I'm going to get criticism every time. And then there's this fear that's associated with this training style, because you're like, no matter what I do, I'm going to get negative feedback when it comes to this. And I'm going to have done something that I wasn't supposed to. And then the goalkeeper coach is going to give me criticism about A, and then I'm going to do A, but B falters. And then they're going to give me criticism about B. And then it just becomes this like perpetuating cycle of like, I'm going to get negative feedback no matter what. And I think it doesn't create this like, oh, I can't wait to go to training. Oh, I can't wait to solve these problems. Or I'm so excited to be able to have freedom to play. Like I'm excited to, have the support of my coach who's going to give me some feedback. We're going to figure out these things together. It becomes a source of like, no matter what, I'm going to get some like criticism. And I'm not saying criticism is bad, but it just becomes very nitpicky, and it creates in these goalkeepers this sense of perfectionists, which to me is like, I'm working so hard to like unravel that perfectionism in people, because goalkeeping isn't perfect. Goalkeeper is about being effective. And at the end of the day, if you dive and you drop a ball and no one's there to put it in, is it a mistake? No. You picked it up, you have possession. But in training, if that information isn't there, then we're going to get nitpicked and it's going to be wrong, right? So I think if we can alter our session design and also remind players, hey, my job is to challenge you. My job is to challenge you. You're going to make mistakes today. And that's okay. I expect that. It's so much easier. You're affording an opportunity for a goalkeeper to be like, wow, I grew today. I feel so much more comfortable with blah, blah, blah. Even if they didn't have a successful outcome, I am more aware of blah, blah, blah. And to me, when you're able to have progress, and this is like something that the Harvard Business Study has done over like the last 80 years about fulfillment and happiness, is that people aren't just fulfilled. People aren't fulfilled by just the end. It's about the progress that makes people feel fulfilled and keeps them inspired and motivated. It's been like this 80-year study, just like general pop. And people are more satisfied when they feel or they sense that they're making some progress. And so for me, like, we're creating something that is transferable to the game, and people feel like, wow, I have more attention around this, or I have more understanding of those principles. Even if it didn't come off successfully in the outcome, that progress keeps them motivated to continue to maybe take some space or try again. And mistakes really aren't that like earth shattering in games, and people can remain confident even if they make a mistake in the game, because they've trained that way. In training, they've learned how to adapt and adjust and, deal with the mental side of the game.
That'll preach, Jill. One thing that I want to like call back from what you just said that I wrote down because I loved it so much, and it's like the Tori version of it, but you said something about internal trust and how like where does that come from? And I think when we can have internal trust in ourselves, it breeds that confidence because I know that I can figure it out. And that's something that we talked a lot about on our coaches call last Sunday of like, we want to create a safe space for our athletes. We want them to have psychological safety because we want them to be able to self-organize and like what that looks like. And all those things are part of our session design, right? And we can create that culture and in that environment as a coach. We have that control, and we can't control whether our goalkeepers feel confident, but we can give them a space that like helps them create confidence. Because so often people want to, when you ask a goalkeeper, I don't care what their age is, when you ask them what makes them feel confident, they're going to give you an outcome.
Mm-hmm.
I would
making saves,
saves, making like this big save, awards, winning this made me feel confident, right? That they think that makes them feel confident, whether it be because it's something they're working towards or it gave them a moment of like, a rush, like some endorphins when it did happen for them.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't realize that like the things that truly probably put them in that state to feel confident is all those internal things. And it's cool to know that as coaches, we do have some more control in that than you think. Like you think, okay, I can't give you confidence still, but I can set the stage to help breed that in you. And I think the more we can create the internal trust, it gives them that self-organizing ability.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, if we're talking about session design, and this rings true for confidence or in possession or game understanding, whatever you bring attention to is what you deem important.
Mm.
So if I only bring attention to successful outcomes, I'm missing the point of growing confidence and resiliency in these young players. If I only praise a successful outcome.
Yeah.
So within a session, if someone is trying really hard and they haven't figured out a movement solution that's effective, you know what I'm going to say to that person? I'm so proud of you for being resilient and keep trying. I'm so resilient that you were able, or I'm so proud of you for being able to manage the mistakes in that last round. And you're so much closer. You're getting closer every single repetition. You're getting better because you're able to cross off a different solution that isn't working. Keep trying. I'm here. I'm proud of your resilience. I'm bringing attention to the character piece because ultimately at the end of the day, in my very humble opinion, it is the thing that separates good and great goalkeepers is the mental side of the game. And if we want to help that mental side of the game, we need to start bringing some attention to those moments. I reflect back on at me as a kid, right? Like I'm in therapy and my therapist will say, wow, that was really strong of your 10-year-old self or whatever. And I'm like, wow, I never even thought of that. That was really strong. That was really brave, right? And so now as a coach and as a parent, I'm like, okay, I need to make sure I bring attention to those things so that players can identify with, I am brave. I am strong. I am resilient. I never knew that until someone told me that, but now I know that about myself and I can embody that, you know? And sometimes even as an adult, I'm like, yeah, I need someone to tell me that and remind me of those things.
Yeah, it doesn't always have to come from you. Sometimes it can come from someone like pointing something out in you, right?
Yeah, right.
Still like an internal thing because you did it. You did the work. They're just calling light to it. And you're like, oh yeah, I did do that. I did.
Right.
It's amazing. I love it. I think can be really useful, not just for goalkeepers to be like, yeah, you know what? All this isn't my fault. There's nothing wrong with me. But also as coaches, it's so important that we're self-reflective. It really is, because otherwise we are just staying the same. And I think anyone who's in the business, I think really wants to help people, right? We do this because we love it. And I hope that we can all be self-reflective and kind of recognize like, yeah, maybe I'm not doing these things on purpose, but there's a better way to do them to get the most out of my goalkeepers and help them be the best they can be.
Yeah, I think it kind of all boils back to observing and being brave to find different solutions that might be different than what you've always done, right? And I think it's okay to make mistakes. I think it's okay to try things and they don't work out. Again, the reflection part about what you're talking about is so important, but I think we have to be brave to find the solutions to the things that we whinge about the most.
Yeah.
And we're here to support you on that. We don't have all the answers, but this is just the way that we work and we operate, and we've seen a big upside from it. We've seen players develop in it and through it, and it's going to be a space that we continue to research, study, and implement as often as much as possible.
You're darn tootin'.
Wait, I got a question for you. It's quick. It's really quick.
Okay, hit me with it.
NWSL starts soon. Who is the goalkeeper that you're most excited to watch this season? Besides Kaylin Sheridan, because you can't say that because she's fam.
I get it. Mandy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mandy McGlynn.
Or Ange.
Ange
Clips. They might be Ange Clips, trademark. Very excited to watch both of them, and I know that they both worked really hard this offseason, and you were a big part of their journey, and we've talked a lot about them as goalkeepers, so I'm excited to kind of like see and watch them kind of explore some things.
Yeah, I'm excited. I got two. First one is going to be Anne Katrinberger because I'm like her biggest fan. Like I think I'm a walking stand account for her. But also Casey Murphy, because we got to spend a lot of time with her in the off season and saw so many massive strides in her. And I think we're going to see another element of her, and in terms of her bravery, playing more line breaking passes, maybe being a bit more preventative. But yeah, I think it's going to be a good year for both of them.
Love it, love it, love it. We love NWSL, and I think maybe in the future we got to do some game breakdowns of that. Maybe that's something that's coming new for us.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. And if any goalkeepers are listening to this podcast and they're wondering how they can work on their game understanding, their in possession abilities, or their confidence, we do have some select camps coming up this summer that we would love to work with you at. And those all include Zoom calls where you can see these methods and philosophies played out in game-like situations to prepare you to be successful in your own fall season. So make sure you guys check those out. They will be in New Jersey 3 times, one at the end of June, 2 in July. And if you can't make it to that, please find us in San Diego, or we are also extending our reach into Florida this year in 2025.
Woo! But that's all we got for you today, and we'll catch you later.
Catch you later.